Hey y'all, my name is Babbles and I have a goal. I want to get better at building in Minecraft. So to do that, I'm going to delve into some stories. Welcome to Building Tales. So what is the goal of this series? Well, like I said earlier, I want to teach myself how to build better. Because I'd noticed that in my regular Minecraft playing, all I was doing was building the same kinds of things over and over again, and not really being adventurous in the things that I was doing. I want to get better at just about every aspect of building. I want to get better at structures. I want to get better at organics. I even want to get better at terraforming. But that's not going to happen if I just do the same things over and over again. So I decided I needed a better structure and more inspiration. And then I thought about stories. Just about every culture in every place and every time period has its own set of stories, and I could use those as inspiration for the things that I want to build. So in this series, I will be looking at different stories and building different things from within those stories. Sometimes it may be a building, like a castle. Sometimes it may be something as small as a house. Sometimes it may be something from the environment, or even a creature or character from those stories. The point is to get me some variety in my building and really expand my skills. Depending on the story and what I want to build, I may spend one video per story or I may spend several. I don't know. I just kind of want to go with where the story takes me and where the inspiration takes me. I also kind of want to look at the different versions of stories, because there are lots of cultures that share the same basic story, but there are little differences that can really impact how it comes out. And I want to kind of pay homage to those different versions by building in those different styles. In the interest of full disclosure, this will be a creative mode series, and the builds that I make will be a mixture of pre-planned and improvised. Some of them I may have worked out a little bit before I started recording. Others of them I may be working on as I'm recording. The goal of this series is to learn how to build better, so I'm going to use all the resources available to do that. Now that I've got a space cleared out, it's time to start building. So the first story we're going to be looking at is actually Cinderella. It seemed like a pretty good place to start. It's a pretty familiar fairy tale. And one of the most famous tellings of it is by the Grimm brothers. In this version, Cinderella loses her mother, and her father remarries, so she gains a stepmother and two stepsisters. Growing up, Cinderella's stepmother and stepsisters are very cruel to her, making her do all of the chores and even making her sleep by the fireplace, earning her the name Cinderella. Now one day, a ball is announced by the king to find a wife for his son the prince. Invitations are sent out for every eligible young lady to come and attend. Now obviously Cinderella's stepsisters are going to come, but when Cinderella asks her stepmother if she could go, she's instead assigned more chores. Cinderella's stepmother tells her she can go if she can complete these chores, but every time Cinderella does this, she's assigned another chore. And these chores are seemingly impossible. Cinderella can only get them done with the help of some woodland friends. Eventually, her stepmother tells her that she simply can't go to the ball as she has no fine clothes to wear, and so her stepmother and stepsisters go on without her. But Cinderella makes it to the ball anyway. She is gifted a beautiful dress from a bird in a tree and heads to the ball, where she dances with the prince. But at the end of the night, when she has to return home, the prince follows her, but he can never find her. This happens 3 nights in a row. On the 3rd night, Cinderella accidentally leaves a shoe behind, and the prince uses that to scour the land in search for the one woman he knows will fit this shoe. When he gets to Cinderella's house, her stepsisters try to trick him by making their feet fit the shoe in rather gruesome ways. But he finally finds Cinderella, and her foot fits the shoe perfectly, and they get married and live happily ever after. This is the version I believe most people are familiar with, but that's not actually what we're building from today. The version we're building from is much older, and it comes from France. It's from a story called Le Fresne, if you'll pardon my pronunciation. In this version, Cinderella is actually left as a baby in the roots of an ash tree. So we're building a tree. It seemed kind of appropriate to start the series with what Cinderella would have started her life in. So I've built the basic framework of the tree. It's made mostly of oak logs with some spruce stairs, spruce slabs, and then also spruce fence posts and gates in it. And I started with the trunk, and I wanted it to have a little bit of texture with the stairs and the slabs in there. And then I did the roots, and I wanted them to kind of pop out of the ground, go back into the ground, just kind of go everywhere like I thought real tree roots would. And then I built the branches, and I wanted them to not be so uniform. I wanted to have them kind of going off in different directions, and again, that's mainly the oak logs. But I also added the fence posts and gates and the slabs and stairs anywhere that I thought it might look a little thin, just to thicken it out a little bit and make it look a little bit more sturdy. But yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with it. Now that I've got the trunk built out, I'm putting in the leaves. And I'm using a mixture of oak leaves, acacia leaves, and azalea leaves. The reason I'm using these types is because oak leaves and acacia leaves actually have a very similar color, but their textures are different, so it can provide a little bit of variety when you're looking at it. When I started building this tree, I knew I wanted it to be tall and fluffy, so the way I went about doing that was I focused on the ends of the branches first, and I really put a lot of oak leaves around them to get kind of a general shape. Once I had that general shape, I knew I would be able to go in later and really fill in the middle bits. Other than that, I didn't really have a method for where I was placing the leaves. Like I said, I wanted it to be fluffy, and that grants a sort of freedom in where the leaves can be placed. If I wanted it to be a more manicured tree, I would maybe have to be a little more intentional, but I wanted this to be a wild tree, something that you could just find out in the forest, something that would be growing freely. So like I said earlier, this series is going to be a combination of pre-planned and improvised builds. Well, this one was completely improvised. I have built a couple of trees before. I will not say that I am an expert by any means, but I did feel comfortable enough with my skills that I would be able to just kind of freehand this. That being said, I do think there is room for improvement with this, and that is another one of my goals for this series. I want to be able to look back on this first video a long time from now and see where I started. I think it would be a really cool thing to see my progress over time. So after I did those main bits of oak leaves, I went back in with the acacia leaves and started filling in some sparse patches. Like I said earlier, the color is very similar, but the texture is different enough to provide some interest. And I'm once again freehanding where these leaves are going. What I'm doing is I'm looking for sparse patches that I've left and filling them in with this different texture. I know I want the majority of the leaves to be this color, which is why I'm using these two, and I'll go in with the azalea later to kind of lighten things up a bit. So what I'm doing now is I'm going in with the azalea leaves, which are a lighter color than the oak and acacia leaves, and I'm kind of focusing them on the high parts of the tree, or darker parts that I think could be lit up a little more. The way I'm approaching this is the same way I would approach something that I was drawing. I have to take into account where I think the light is coming from, and I'm focusing the azalea leaves on those places. Or, like I said earlier, there are some shadowy parts that I think should be brought out a little bit more, so I'm placing the lighter leaves there, because it'll draw the eye. Now what I'm doing is I'm going in with a combination of all three leaves and really focusing on the shape. I really want to fluff it out a little bit and make it look more alive. Since this is based on a fairy tale, I also wanted to bring in a little bit of magic, and my first thought with that was glowberries and some glow lichen to kind of give it a shine and that little fantastical element. In the Fresna, Cinderella is left in the roots of the ash tree. So to reference that, I put a little bassinet or crib down amongst the roots that I had made earlier. And there we have it. Here is our completed tree. I really do hope you've enjoyed this video, so leave a like if you like, subscribe if you so choose, and please comment down below what stories you'd like me to explore in the future. And I always recommend checking out your local library for any more information on these stories. Have a good day!